Hey guys, it's Caroline from Personal Empowerment Academy. I hope you're having a great day. So it's been a few days since I did my last Facebook Live. So the truth is I was planning to do lives for 30 consecutive days. And I think I got probably just over halfway through and then consciously decided to take a break. So for those of you who have been watching my lives in the last few weeks, you'll know that there's been a bit of stuff going on and I've been going through a pretty major house move. And I was still trying to get these lives done while I was unpacking, and the lives just got later and later. I think I did a few after midnight, and then some of them got to like 2 a.m. and then maybe 3 a.m. and yeah, I reached a point where I think I was on the verge of physical and mental exhaustion and just went, look, something's got to give, and at this point in time it's just gonna have to be getting these videos done. So anyway, I'm back, and actually a funny story that I'll share as well. So I saw some of my cousins and my auntie and uncle last week, and a few people were commenting about how they keep seeing me pop up on their feeds on Facebook. And my uncle said, every time I open Facebook, all I see is your face and you're talking. And he said, how do we shut you up? All you do is talk these days. And so, that was actually my gift to my uncle. It was a bit of a break for you from my lives. So now I am back. And look, I'll give you a little bit of the backstory. So if you have been watching in recent times, so I have been going through a house move, which on its own is kind of no big deal. So, I've moved before, and I've been commenting to people actually that last time I moved, which was a few years ago, it all just worked seamlessly. So I got removalists, unpacked in about a day, returned all the boxes, like it was super easy. And so I had expectations that things would be exactly the same this time round. And so in terms of, I guess, even the reason why I've gone through this move, so it's funny how sometimes, one small action or a decision that you make can trigger an avalanche of events. And a couple of months ago, I spent a weekend with my two dogs who didn't live with me, and realized that they were quite sick and they weren't being looked after properly. So I made a very quick and firm decision that I was going to take the dogs back and that they would live with me going forward. The only problem with that is I was living in a unit at the time where I wasn't allowed to have the dogs, and so made a decision to move back into my house, but it had tenants in it. So my tenants being my sister and her fiance. So as a result, they agreed to find another place to live so I could move back into my house. But in the meantime, I sort of temporarily moved back home with my parents, with my dogs as well, while I still had my apartment. So anyway, it's just been a sort of a complex web of interconnected pieces that bit by bit sort of have moved, not necessarily in the way that I had planned for them to or that I wanted them to, but there's just been a lot to deal with. And so the reason I'm sharing this is because sometimes when you go through a series of life events that just sort of causes all of this stuff to get thrown up in the air, and it just feels like your life is in an absolute state of chaos. So maybe you're physically busy or you're mentally busy or both. Eventually you come to a point where that dust starts to settle and you start to think about, okay, well maybe tomorrow or the day after I'm going to start to settle back into what was my normal life, and I need to, refocus on things. And so what I want to talk to you about today is how you can shift to an energetic state to, increase your income or achieve your goals, especially after you've gone through a series of sort of crazy and unusual life circumstances. And even if you haven't gone through anything that crazy, maybe you've actually just been going around in circles and you're wondering, when is that day going to come where you're going to actually get focused? Particularly if you know that your energy isn't in the right place. So maybe you go to work on things every day, but you find that you've got to keep resetting your plans or revisiting them, and you're not sure what it is that you should be working on. And so the solution to that is really to be in a specific kind of energetic state where you're productive, you're creative, and you're just able to, tap into the right resources that are going to move you forward. And you usually know when you're not in that state, because often two of the most toxic emotions that can surround you when you're struggling to be in that powerful and creative energetic state. Two of those emotions are anger and fear. And so there can be anger around, things to do with your current circumstances or even things to do with the past. And when you're in an angry state, because, one of the telltale signs is you might be snappy, you might be impatient. So anger gets reflected in your tone. So if you don't process and deal with your anger properly, then you usually end up taking it out on other people, either directly in the way that you interact with others, or even in the way that you receive information that comes from other people. Bad news especially, so you might, just react really strongly to that, but even good news. So you might hear about other people's successes, and if you're feeling anger inside, then one of two things can happen. One is, you can actually just feel almost, I guess, not happy for them. So just feeling maybe jealousy, but just feeling like resentful in a way of other people's success. Or you can take a personal hit and just feel like you're physically sinking and, you feel like you're drowning in your own space and you can never get ahead while everyone else is making progress and you're not. And that, in a lot of cases, is fueled by anger that you haven't dealt with. And so then when you are feeling that state of anger, another emotion that comes along with that is fear, because you then start to worry about the fact that maybe you're not achieving your goals, or you don't have direction and you don't know where you're going, and you start to say things like, why does this always happen to me? Why do bad things always happen to me? Why can't I get focused? Why aren't I moving ahead? Why haven't I hit my goals yet? And you kind of get the message, and you just end up falling into this deep negative spiral. And so what you want to learn to do is how to actually break out of that, because when I talk about shifting to an energetic state that will help you to increase your income, actually the key to doing that is to break out of your negative state first. Because if you're trying to just focus on the positive stuff while you've still got anger or resentment or fear, then it sort of ends up being this like this state of artificial harmony. So you're pretending that you're trying to think positive, but deep down you're feeling really negative. And so it's not a genuine or an authentic state of positivity. And so what you really need to do is to learn to deal with those negative emotions. And so the one I would actually start with is anger, because anger is a really highly charged emotion, and it's intense. And if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you'll know that I use a technique called tapping to deal with a lot of negative emotional states. But I will say that sometimes when your anger is really intense, tapping isn't the best tool to use initially. So you definitely can move on and use tapping to deal with anger, but sometimes you need to do something really a lot more physical to release your anger. And I don't mean physically take it out on another person, I mean physically release it from your body. And so a few ways that you can do that, and I've tried these, they really work. So when you're feeling intense anger, you've actually got to get it out of your body because it's looking for an outlet. And if you don't release it, then you either end up burying it and it comes out at a later point, or as I said before, you end up taking it out on other people. Hopefully not in an aggressive physical way, but you can do it, even through your words and your tone. Which can be really hurtful. And so what you want to do is just deal with it physically. And so one of the best things you can do to release your anger is to exercise. And I mean sort of more intense, really physical exercise. So if you like to run, and going for a run is a great way to just get your body moving, to release some endorphins and to really start to shift that anger. Even if you walk, so a really vigorous walk, so a good paced power walk. And even the fresh air around you will really help you to start to shift that anger around. And then another thing you can do, and this will sound a bit weird, but I have tried it and this really works. And actually, if this sounds weird to you, it's probably because you see yourself as the kind of person who would never do this sort of thing, and that could be an indication that you have built up anger that you've never released. And so one thing that you can do, and probably do this like when you're on your own. So go to a room like your bedroom and go to your bed and grab a pillow and actually just start punching the crap out of this pillow. So that might sound really bizarre, but it is a way to physically just get some of this anger out of your body. And the great thing about it is you're doing it in a way that it doesn't hurt anybody else and it doesn't hurt you. All you're doing is releasing some toxic emotion. And then another thing that you can do, so if that sounds like a bit too far-fetched for you, you can actually just, scream. Again, it might be something that you want to do when you're on your own so that you don't scare anyone. But really scream and get that aggression out of your body. So physically release it. And if you can't do it at home, you can even go for a drive and do it, maybe play some loud music or something and scream in the car. So these are just some ways that you can physically start to shift those deep, dark, intense emotions from within your body. Because if you don't deal with that negativity in a real and genuine way, then as I said before, trying to overlay positive and abundant energetic thoughts over the top of that are really not going to work, because you're not dealing with the root cause of the issue. And so once you've done that, and trust me, if you do those things, it doesn't take long for you to start to shift into a better state, because another really highly charged state is passion. And one of the things that you often find is once you have, done that bit of exercise, or you've screamed and you've released some of that energy, it's a great platform to then bounce into your state of passion and remind yourself, what your goals are. So what it is that you do want. And so what you can then do, so once you've been able to clear this anger, is you then want to start to focus on gratitude. So start with some simple things. So remind yourself what you're grateful for. And again, a great place to do this is if you're outdoors. So if you are going for that run or you're going for that vigorous walk, once you feel like that anger is lifting and clearing from your body, start to tell yourself things that you're grateful for, even just some of the basic things like the home that you live in, the people that you have around you, your friends, your family, anything that you can think of that you're grateful for. So gratitude will start to shift you into a better energetic state. And once you start to get into that state, then you want to refocus on what your goals are. So having some solid goals that you're striving for is really important. And then you want to back that up with a clear strategy and an action plan. Because if you don't have actions to, back up your goals, then they're not really goals. It's more just like a pipe dream. And so just to summarize that, you want to really deal with the negativity. You want to then shift into a state of gratitude, remind yourself what your goals are, and then have your action plan and start to execute those actions. And if you're able to do that, then the combination of all of these things is going to shift you into the state that you need to really solidly increase your income, and it's going to be genuine. It's not going to be, this forced state of positive thinking. And so the final thing that I'll say as well is, if you're wanting to try all of those things, but, maybe you have tried some of them before and you still find that you're going around in circles. So if you really are stuck, then get some help. You don't need to stay in this state. It's really something that's quite easy to break out of, but sometimes it does take help from someone else and some guidance for you to be able to follow through the motions in the right order, and to actually follow through on the action plan as well. And so if you are in the position where either you've just come out of some really kind of uncanny, crazy life circumstances and you're ready to refocus, or if you have been going around in circles for a while and you're feeling stuck and you do want some help, then I've got some great news for you, because if you have been watching any of my videos, you know that I'm about to kick off the Money Magnets Bootcamp that I'm running with another money coach, Izdihar Jamil. We've partnered up to deliver a 7-day bootcamp to you, where we're going to guide everybody through all of the different stages that I've just talked about in terms of what it takes to move into the right energy and to actually have a really clear blueprint for how you can go about achieving your income goals. And so we're going to be stepping you through things like some effective lead generation strategies to really get things kick-started in your business. We're going to talk about how you can identify and overcome various money blocks. We're going to talk about how to set different intentions and declarations really around having solid goals that you can then turn into an action plan. And we're also going to show you how you can back that up with a daily routine of gratitude so that you can sustain a really solid energetic state to help you propel forward with all of your goals and achieving those goals. And then I'm going to actually show you how to set really effective income goals and also how to overcome resistance around income goals that you might have that you may not be aware of. And then we're going to wrap that all up and we're going to put all of that into a money blueprint for you that you'll be able to act on, execute, and you'll have some very clear actions that you'll be able to carry out. So if you have been stuck and if you're wanting a bit of help, then this is the time to put your hand up. It's going to run for 7 days starting next Monday Australian time, so the 10th of December, and it's not too late for you to get in. We've still got a few spots left. So I'm going to post a link below this video if you want to join our bootcamp. And if you have watched this video all the way to the end, then I will throw in a bonus for you. So if you do want to join our bootcamp, then either drop me a comment below with the word bonus or send me a PM, a private message, and let me know that you want the bonus, and I'll actually give you a coupon code that you can use to get 50% off the cost of the bootcamp. So we'd love to have you on board. So again, if you've been feeling stuck, then maybe now is the time to get some help. And it's going to run for a week, and after that you're going to have a really clear blueprint that you can take with you into 2019 to move your business forward. So I hope you get on board with us. We'd love to have you in the bootcamp, and I will see you in my next video. Thank you for watching. Bye for now.